So go ahead, David, and pull up that slideshow.
This one should make sound either way.
Correct. So if you want to hear a version of that video with sound, you can check out CranHill's YouTube page at some point. And I think we shared it on the Thornapple Facebook page. But looking up at the screen, we've got a bunch of pictures from the week. Lots of them have the folks up here in them. And that will just kind of run while we're sitting here, so feel free to enjoy those while you listen. So I just want to say thank you guys for coming. On a selfish level, there are a few things that I enjoy more than telling stories about friendship camp. So this is just kind of fun for me. Good to sit up here and talking to a mic. And also thank you for showing your interest in this All Abilities team stuff. The Bible reminds us that whatever we have done for the least of the people around us, we've also done for God. And not that this demographic is somehow less of a human, but they're often on the low end of the socioeconomic totem pole. A lot of them just, they look forward to camp all year. It's all they can talk about. A lot of them don't have many opportunities, many advantages. For many of the people in this demographic, they never get to make meaningful decisions. Lots of decisions get made for them. Lots of people get taken advantage of physically, economically, emotionally, all sorts of stuff. So this is just an excellent and powerful way to be the hands and feet and mouth and love of Jesus to those around us. So to provide a little bit of context for the week, all the people that you see up here showed up at CranHill Sunday evening, and campers showed up Monday morning, and then everybody left at some point Friday afternoon, Friday evening. The two gentlemen seated up here, Tim, and this is my dad here, John. They stayed in the cabins overnight with the campers, and Nancy and Michelle and Beth stayed in a really, really fancy trailer. A lot of us are pretty jealous of them. And Rachel and I got to stay in one of the cottages. It was just one of the little perks of getting to be the chaplain. But the power going out during the week meant that it was so hot in there. It was pretty gross. Yeah, we had a bat come and visit us one night. I thought I had a dream that a bat got into the cabin, but we found out that morning that it was not a dream, and that it was very, very real. It's kind of scary. So that's just a little bit of context about the week. We have a list of questions that we have been prepping. I don't have them on me. They're on my phone, and I set my phone by Rachel's purse. So we're just kind of gonna go down the line, kind of. No? Okay. I am not mentally prepared to share a story right now. Does anybody else have something?
He'll be too humble to kind of tell you this, but Stephen's role that week was to be the chaplain. And it's a important role. One of the things that I'm sorry that you missed were some of the comments from campers in terms of their experience and the meeting of friends. But the one piece that they have of Stephen giving one of the talks that he gave, so there were 2 talks each day, is just a wonderful piece because he reminds them of the gospel in about 2 sentences is what they give him in the video. And it's the part where his finger's out like this, but it's a wonderful thing. He did a great job, and for my experience, I was just a counselor's helper in my cabin, but we spent a lot of time on the porch talking about Stephen's talks. So maybe you can just give them an overview of the theme of the week and anything else you want to talk about chapel time.
Sure. So the theme of this particular week, they have a new theme every single summer. And at some point in the spring, early summer, the program director there will send out an email, and he says, here's the curriculum that we have come up with. Here's like a paragraph summary of what I want you to talk about at each chapel, and here's a couple scripture passages to kind of guide your thinking. And so then I sit and I brainstorm, and Rachel helps me collect my disorganized thoughts, and then I eventually come up with some what I hope are decent messages. But this particular summer's theme was strongholds. And I was just about to share the memory verse, but I don't actually remember the memory verse anymore. Rachel's helping me out. For the weapons of our war are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. 2 Corinthians 10:3 and 4? Yeah, okay. We come up with motions and stuff for it every single time to help us remember, but I guess it didn't work very well this time. So the whole week was about trying to break strongholds, and the definition that I at least used for the week was strongholds are the sins in our life that we just keep doing over and over again. They're bad habits that we need to break. So these strongholds look different for every single person. You might struggle with pride, with thinking you're number one, but another person might not have that struggle. Instead, they maybe complain a lot, or just for an example. So we started off the week kind of defining that and talking about just how it looks different for everybody. We used Jesus being tempted in the wilderness as an example. Kind of how Satan really pinpoints these different desires of Jesus, his desire to eat and his desire to be brought out of his fasting in the wilderness, and then desire to have power. And so it's like, hey, it's the same for each of us. We are all tempted differently, and we all have different bad habits that we gravitate towards. And then the following one talked about, it's like, yeah, that was kind of depressing for a Monday evening message. But I reminded them all, it's like, hey, God loves us no matter what we do. Every single person here is a work in progress, and we're not going to be perfect until we're up in heaven someday. And it turned out that was actually really encouraging to a lot of people, which was really, really good to hear. Talked about how Satan is a liar, how he tempts us by lying to us. Sometimes we think that, like, oh, okay, if I do this bad thing, I will get something good out of it. And it's like, yeah, maybe in the short term, but in the long run, it's going to cause more harm than good. And different things, different lies like, God doesn't love me anymore because of the bad stuff I've done, or God just wants me to be happy, when the Bible makes it very clear that suffering draws us closer to God. What else did we talk about? I'm having a hard time remembering right now. Talked about how, oh yeah, I remember. Talked about how the Bible is our biggest weapon against fighting against Satan and his lies, and it's really, really important to know what's in the Bible. Talked about how, yeah, it's not just enough to know the Bible, but then you have to act on it. It's not just enough to go to church on Sunday morning and then think you're good for the rest of your life. It's like, no, you have to act it out. We used the example of the Pharisees. The Pharisees probably knew the Bible better than basically anybody out there, but we see that Jesus chewed out the Pharisees more often than any other group. And then reminded the campers that God always keeps his promises, no matter what. His promises to love us, his promise that he's never going to leave us or forsake us. And if we look in the Bible and we see all these other promises, it's like, yep, I believe that God will never flood the earth again because of the rainbow, and I believe this promise, and I believe that promise. It's like, well, if you believe that God keeps one promise, you have to believe that he keeps all his other promises too. God's not going to be all wishy-washy and keep some promises but not others. Talked about how God is our champion. We get really, really bogged up sometimes about, like, we gotta defeat our sins, and we gotta do this all ourselves. It's like, no, we aren't able to change us. Only God is able to change us, and so we shouldn't have too much stress about the condition of our souls and our journey and our spot in the sanctification journey. And then ended the week with giving some practical tips to how we can break those strongholds. Talked about going to church, reading your Bible, praying, breaking bad habits like getting rid of idols and different things like that. Yeah, so that was a kind of a brief summary of all the different messages for the week. In all my weeks as a summer camp counselor there, I found that these friendship camp chaplains often were very, very, very superficial, and I really believe that they could, that the friendship campers could understand things that were a lot deeper, more than maybe some of the other chaplains could. I remember they would often have friendship camp over the 4th of July week, and one of the chaplains we would have the same chaplain come every single week over the 4th of July, and one of the chapels was inevitably just going to be us singing Star Spangled Banner and God Bless America, and it's like, man, we could do better than this, you know? And then all the campers would chant, USA, USA, and I'm like, man, like, this is weird, we can do better than this. And so I really tried to dive a lot deeper than maybe some of the other friendship camp chaplains do, and it's a very tough balancing act. It's like all the campers have very different cognitive abilities and stuff. It's like, how do I make a message that speaks to the one with the lowest cognitive abilities and one with the highest cognitive abilities? But I love standing up there and getting to talking to the mic, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and I love being the chaplain.
I'd just like to thank this church for all the, sending us, and the trailer that Stephen described was beautiful. I drove past it about 10 times before I realized it was our trailer, because I couldn't believe we'd have such a nice one. The air conditioner was blasting, it was super hot. So Beth, Michelle, and I had a great time. Michelle brought lots of snacks and other things. And every day we could have an ice cream cone on Thornapple Community Church. And so every day we all went down there and made sure we got our free snack. And I just thank you for sending us. It was a wonderful experience, and I loved it.
So, in addition to some of the other things on the list, we want to share this experience, because there are some of you who think that you could never be sitting up here, that this isn't you, that for whatever reason, not being able to sleep in your own bed or whatever, we tried to make accommodations, but something that maybe won't come up in conversation, but I want to share with you is we were there at the end of the summer, the second week of August, and already they were working on a thin staff list for the summer. It was just hard to get staff, and one of the things that was very noticeable, at least within the friendship camp dynamic, is that if Thornapple weren't there, it would have been different for the staff that were there, because the 7 of us were all at different tables during the eating time, which is one of those important times. You have folks who have allergies that you need to be able to look at a name tag and say, oh, this is a gluten-free person sitting at my table today. So we help manage some of that. So in addition to just being friends, this group really made a fantastic week. I'd never heard the story about other chaplains, and Stephen's ability to talk at the top and at the bottom of the cognitive span was just awesome. So talk about any fears. I wrote this in my questions to all of you. If you had any fears going into this, I want anybody who's sitting out there that may be a little hesitant to engage to hear you talk about how you overcame those. Who wants to go next? John, I think. Yep.
I said I had the whole service to prepare for this because Stephen reminded me last night, and I said, I got nothing. I can start out by saying last year I retired in June, and then my wife and I moved here. My schedule going forward is simply Bible study Saturday morning and church. Other than that, besides maybe 1 or 2 days planning out, there's nothing. Last November, Stephen talked me into going to the retreat that was at CranHill for Friendship Camp, and it was only 3 days. It wasn't much more than for me to stand in the middle of the cabin and say, get dressed, everybody, go take a shower. Beyond that, there wasn't much. But then he freaked me out and said, Peter needs his teeth brushed. And it's like, you know, sometimes I don't even want to brush my own teeth. I do, so don't worry. And so I brushed Peter's teeth. I didn't want to, but it had to be done. He warned me, since I don't have that much planning going on, he told me about the week coming up, and that was the one that we're talking about now. And he said, Dad, it's a whole week now. The weather could get hot, and there's a lot more you got to do. All right. If I said no, and I'm laying in bed not knowing what I'm going to do that day, it's like, I better get up there and support Stephen. This is what he'd like. And so I went, and there was much more than I did besides having to brush Peter's teeth. It had to be done. I think there was 12 people on our side and 12 on Tim's side. So it was me and the other counselor taking care of these men. And again, it had to be done. And Friday, I'm thinking, you know, I suppose I could get used to this. So going out, it's like, yep, it has to be done. And we did have a swell time. Yep. Yeah, we did. Lots of laughing. And even to this day, sometimes I think about the stories that Michelle and Beth had in their trailer about Michelle sleeping in the bunk bed and having to get down every morning. So, you know, you could ask her about that, and she'll love to tell you that story. Yeah, thank you, and I'm looking forward to the retreat in November.
That was my one thing, is that when I go on all these mission trips, it's hard for me to sleep. And then we had this beautiful trailer with air conditioning. So I thought, I'll take the top bunk, because that's what I always did when I was a camp counselor or whatever. So I go up the first 4 steps, and then I see there's nothing to hang on to. There's no way to get out. Beth and Nancy are already sleeping. How am I going to get up there? So I grab the mattress, and I roll over. And I thought, how am I going to get down in the middle of the night? And then one time, I got stuck. I couldn't find the ladder down. I couldn't go up or down. I said, Beth, wake up. So she put me on her shoulder and got me down. So if you see her going like this, it's because I still hurt her shoulder. But that was my only fear. We arranged something. We didn't sleep on that bunk bed anymore. But I just also wanted to thank you, too, for your support. God did exceeding abundantly above all we could ask or think there. I want to thank you for praying for us, for supplying for us. I love going to things like that. So I didn't have those fears like that. It was just ready to go in. You would have been proud of each one of these. I never knew you didn't think you wanted to be there. They were incredible. It was just like, it was a natural thing to have all these kids around us, and Tim with his little Down syndrome guys, that was one of my favorite things. We'd watch, look at Tim, look at that little guy, look at Tim, look at that little guy. He just loved him, and it was so neat to see that. But I want to thank you for our special treat at night. I just looked forward to my little ice cream cone all by myself and just being in my own little world for a minute, and you supplied that, so thank you. I would think of myself as going into these places as poured out wine. I ask God to help me to be poured out wine, broken bread for you. But my surprise, and I don't know why I'm surprised because this happens, I want to share all my joy, all my love, and my laughter. But by the first afternoon here, I thought, my goodness, I am getting so much more from them than I could get. And that was incredible to me. So I thought, I'm not really giving anything. They're giving it all to me. And I was just really excited about that. The trust, they just told me their little stories. One little girl, well, she was in her 20s, said, my uncle died Saturday. I said, you're kidding. My favorite uncle died Saturday too. We talked about our uncles, my Uncle Joe and her uncle. She said, but I have to go to the funeral. They won't let me come back. I said, they won't? Well, I'll make sure you get back. So I talked to Pastor Tim, and I was willing to drive, but they said I'd have to get a sub. They worked it out, so an aunt brought her back, and she could come back to the rest, and then we were forever friends from that. Another one, I wanted to show you, Letra's. Every time they went to the bathroom, they had to have someone go with them. Well, I ended up, Stephen, I missed a lot of your sermons in the end because I was always taking people to the bathroom, but they would hold your hands and tell them that they love you. So this is Letra's. This is my new forever friend. And Mary Wesseling once told me, don't ever give Brett your cell phone. Well, I made the mistake of giving her my cell phone. I counted in the first 4 days, I got 43 phone calls from her, because you can count on your cell phone. One of them was 6 in a row. And then they said, well, you're gonna have to get rid of that. But I said, okay, now Letra's, every time you call, it might be 10 seconds. Hey, what's up? I love you. And then I said, now that I'm starting to teach, you can only call me on Sundays. So my phone is off right now. I probably have about 5 or 6 calls on there. So she messages, and I had, let's see, 63 messages in the last 3 weeks. So, but some of these things were just like God wink moments that some of you go to on Friday. The 66-year-old man, he could not communicate with us, but his mom told me at the end, he said, this is like Disney World to him. He is so excited, he can hardly wait to go. So he would eat at my table. The last 2 days, he had every meal with me, and I helped him. We learned how to communicate that way. And the more happy he was, the more he hummed. You know, so we heard this hum. You won't want him in a choir, but he was beautiful to God. And I just wanted to end with saying, I hope I can go on this weekend in November. I have at the Cascade printing some things, some A, B, C's of salvation, to continue with what you have, something that they know, so that they know that they know Jesus in a simple way like that they can understand. And next year, God willing, I'm going to go. But my goal is to be just like Rachel. She was amazing. And when we got there, all these kids came up to her and said, Rachel, and they hugged her and they loved her, and she was just such an important part of their life. She remembered their names and stuff, but I want to have that where they're excited to see me. I don't know. They do like grandmas, even though you're young, but they were all just very special people. And to quote my friend Letra's, she always said, hey, what's up? I love you. This is what I want to say to you. Hey, what's up? Sign up. Go next year. Don't miss it. I love you.
Hi. I don't know if I can top Michelle's. She's terrific. But anyway, I also would like to thank everyone for supporting us, for praying for us, for giving us the beautiful trailer that we got to sleep in, Nancy and Michelle and myself. And it was so neat. I mean, you know, Nancy brought a couple of gifts from or games. I think I need to go back to camp. She taught us how to play them, and we would laugh, and it was a great experience. You know, we know each other at church all the time, and but it's a different level when you're living with somebody for a week in a trailer. And I want to thank Nancy and Michelle both for your friendship, and had a wonderful time spending it with you guys. Also, each member here up that was at camp, thank you. You were wonderful. You showed God's love to each individual. It was a blessing that you just cannot believe. Like Tim said, we were in charge of serving the people at our table. Sometimes we would have 6, sometimes 7. We would have to get the food because we couldn't let them go get it because who knows what would happen. One parent told us that her daughter's eyes were bigger than her stomach. And I mean, she had to be cut off because she just would get sick of eating so much. So things like that. But it was neat because they said too, you'll have people that will enter into your life and they'll have a connection with you and you'll just bond. And it was true because each one of us had somebody that was, excuse me, really close to us. I had a young guy and his name was Hayden, and he would always come to my table and he'd sit next to me, and he was just so sweet. He would help me because I don't think I gained any weight. Maybe the ice cream cones that and the chocolate ice cream that you guys furnished for us. And Tim had brought some snacks to the trailer and we were eating on that. But I don't think I gained very much weight because we had to always be sure to run up and get the plates of food, and the food was fantastic, and give it to everyone. And by the time you sat down, and some of them needed to have their food cut for them, or they needed this, or was upset because somebody looked at them the wrong way and were crying. So by the time you got to sit down, everybody was clearing the plates and, you know, ready for the next trip. Also, I loved when we would go to the tent where we got to sing and hear, Yes, Stephen. I tell ya, getting older. Preach, and Stephen really enjoyed your preaching too because you truly do have the gift. And Rachel too is fantastic. But the best part I enjoyed about the camp was when we were in the, I don't know, I call it a tent, a chapel, wherever we would get the kids. What did you call it again? Yeah, but there was something that, okay, now we're going to go. Yeah, breakaway. And they would play music, and the kids would get out and just dance. And their favorite song was God's not dead, he's really alive. And they would just raise the roof, and they made such a joyful noise unto the Lord. It just touched your heart just to see them interact, and they were so full of the Holy Spirit. And I encourage you, if you want to be uplifted, if you want to think, I can't do it, you're wrong, because nothing's impossible with God on our side. And I encourage you to sign up, like Michelle said, and you'll never regret it. And one thing I want to leave with you is, count your many blessings, see what God has done.
So I'll share now. As a perspective of this was like I think my 6th year now, including 2 years working there and then several years of volunteering. That was fun. They kind of hinted at it that like I helped at the registration table, and it was so fun to be able to greet every person by first and last name, and just seeing so many friends again. It was awesome. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun, especially when you look back at like how many years it takes to kind of build up some of those relationships. So I'm excited to see what some of these guys will do in a few years and who they'll really connect with. Something that campers often come with on a sheet, it'll say like their camper goal for the week. When you're working there, you really don't care at all about their goals. You're just hoping that they're all still alive by the end of the week. So I decided, seeing as I was a floater this week, that I was going to try to take one of those goals on and see what I could do with it. And I saw on the list a camper who I've had before and knew she's kind of a pain in the butt. She has really bad OCD. So everything is a reason to panic. If she can't find her sock in the first second of opening her like suitcase, it's a panic. She can't do anything unless you tell her like, okay, we're gonna go to the cabin now. When you get to the cabin, you're gonna get your pajamas out. Get your pajamas out. Now we're gonna walk to the bathroom to put them on. Things like that. She doesn't think she can do it unless you're telling her. But her goal is to be more independent. So I decided I was gonna work with her that week because they're understaffed, they're exhausted. So I was like, I'll just take care of Lily. I'll get her in bed each night. And the first night was pretty exhausting. I think it took us an hour from getting into the cabin to getting her showered in pajamas and just into bed. So it was a long night of talking her through every single step, but I told her at the end of the night, like, hey, each night I'm gonna help you less and less. Your goal is to be independent. We're gonna work on that this week. And she screamed a lot because she didn't like that. So it was just a lot of working with her. Even throughout the days too, where she would like panic that she couldn't get onto the trailer, and I'd tell her, step up onto the trailer, and then she'd get on. So things like that we just worked on basic things throughout the week. And it was exciting to see. By the last night, I told her, I'm not helping you tonight, get it ready for bed. And within 30 minutes, she had done it all herself. So it's just really fun to like go back as a floater now and also like know these campers too and know what they're capable of. Because otherwise, I'm sure there would have been some other volunteer that would have held her hand through it all. So it's fun to know them and just like get to see progress in all of them. And especially like Riley, so he's in a lot of pictures with Tim. He's wearing a green shirt. He's a guy with Down syndrome. He's like my favorite person in the world. And most people kind of hate him because he's kind of a pain in the butt and he doesn't really do what he's asked to do. But I love him. So he was kind of Tim's buddy this week, but he's been coming for a really long time, and he comes every week of camp, so I know him pretty well. That's actually him on the horse on the left. That's Riley. That was the best week I've ever seen of him. He was like well behaved. He like participated. I've never seen him sing or dance at chapel before. He usually is in the back, or he like plops himself at the drums and then just sits there. He was actually like participating. He was singing. So it was really cute to see like him hanging out with Tim during the services. There he is again with the sticker on his eye. I put that there. So yeah, it was just really fun to see growth in him, especially too. A lot of campers over time, just watching them grow. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love it, and I'm really excited to keep going back.
I remember when this first came up, and I was worried that it wasn't going to happen. And what I was recalling was that back in the mid-'80s, when I was at Camp Manitoqua, was my first experience of working at a summer camp in the roles that Stephen and Rachel started in at CranHill as a counselor. Brenda had the same experience. And I remembered that those weeks were just, they're different than most weeks in your life, let's just say that. And I appreciate what Michelle had to say about it being, that one of her observations is that you get a lot more than you give. I'm going to try to qualify that because the word that I'm using about my week is that it was significant. It was significant in the way that God showed up in very simple and real ways, in a way that when you're a pastor in a church and you're thinking about programming and you know, what is the speaker? Do we have communion? It's just all of that is good, and you celebrate that in your life. But this was just different, and it was significant. I too had that experience early on of being served by the 12 men in my cabin, by the 12 men in John's cabin. We could tell you stories about how you have to change sheets of urinated, you know, someone who didn't get up in the middle of the night. We could tell you about what it's like to have someone whose diabetic meter apparently wasn't functioning. So you get panicky because the meter keeps saying dangerously low. and you're looking for the nurse, and you're trying to figure this all out, and you're feeling underqualified to deal with those sorts of things. Sleeping with people that have sleep apnea and no machines in your cabin meant that the melatonin came out, I think, every night for me. And I also I worked with a young man who goes to Hillsdale College, and I could tell that it was the end of the summer for him. If you've ever served on a summer camp staff, you know that those last 2 weeks, you really need the grace of God to work it through. And Riley, as Rachel said, Riley is just, he demands a lot of time. He's the kid who, like, you're getting ready to go get out on the transportation that they provide, which is a horse trailer, not a horse trailer, but a flatbed pulled by a tractor. Oh, did everybody know that Rachel, I don't think there's a picture of Rachel driving. She's a tractor driver. I was so impressed, that she could drive a tractor and is part of the club. Riley was so, and I could just tell that it was like, Riley, I can't deal with you. Riley was sleeping right underneath, why can't I remember his first name? Lewis's bed, and Lewis was on the top, Riley was beneath, and we'd get ready to go, and Riley would take his blanket off, having been fully dressed 10 minutes before, and he's no longer fully dressed. And his shoes are off, and his socks are off, and it'd be like, we've got to go. So you get to help, you get to support the ministry of a wonderful place. It's a great week. It could be a significant experience for you too, in a way that words probably just don't play out. But the experience is going to live inside of you for a long time, and you're going to be grateful that you gave time. So you've already heard this, and we're going to wrap it up here. There is a weekend retreat in November. If you feel like you'd want to just test drive this, it's the first weekend of November. Unfortunately, we have a classes meeting, so I won't be going. If you are interested, please talk to one of us. We can, really what you need to do is go to the CranHill webpage and fill out the application form, because, in today's world, you have to fill out forms and you have to pass this safety test. But we will do this again next summer. And we will make sure that there's accommodations for folks who don't want to stay in a cabin, but would like to be there. It's a gift just to have extra hands in serving during Friendship Week. But I'll promise you that you'll walk away receiving more than you give. And yes, you'll be tired at the end of the week. But if you're worried about, things like, can I walk that far? There's a people mover. You don't walk very far ever. There's ice cream in the, every day, and sometimes it was the ice cream cone that gets you through that afternoon. There's just an opportunity to have a lot of fun and build memories, to spend time as part of a wonderful team. Anybody have one parting comment? Anybody have anything that they didn't share that came up on your screen? Yep.
I don't know if you remember that week, but that was the week of all of the storms. And the power went out for, I don't know how long. Yeah, they couldn't take showers. They were kind of a wreck. And the internet was down throughout probably most of Michigan, I think. And so one of the things they look forward to the most is, and I looked forward to, was the talent show. They all come with their act prepared, but it all depended on the leader's cell phone. because if they want to sing Thriller by Michael Jackson, they had to be able to use Get on the Web. Couldn't do it. So finally Tim, the other Tim, the director, said, we just can't do it. And he came up with a fabulous idea of assigning the battle of the bands, and he put them in groups. And then he said things like, you get, I love that song, so you get 5,000 points. And you sang really well, so you get 200 points. And that ends up to a whole lot of points. So things like that all week happened to us. And they just kept improvising. We rode around a lot on those tractors. And there's Rachel driving. But they didn't care. That didn't bother them. They could have ridden around on the tractor most of the day, probably. So I was amazed at the way everyone rolled with the punches, and the next day they got to take their shower and sleep and all that.
So, again, you've heard, all right, you have less than 2 minutes.
I just want to say this sermon this morning, it finally put it all together for me. This why in the world we had this wonderful time with them where they accepted us so much, and it's because they are somebody, and they are probably mocked in different places in their life, and here everyone accepted them for who they were, what they could give, just the love. They are somebody. They matter to God, and they matter to us.
Two quicks. A fun little story. He comes up to me in the first day and he says, Mr. John, I need to get up at night 2 times. I said, okay, I'll set my alarm 2 times throughout the night. So I would set my alarm, and then the 2 of us would get up. I met the parents at the end of the week, and they found out about that, and they looked at him and said, you are supposed to do that. So, but one of nice rewarding thing is one of the songs, Stephen invited somebody to come and play the guitar and sing a song. Well, in the middle of the song, he turns around and his tears are coming out of his eyes. And he walks back to me and he just hugs me, and then he stands there and listens to the rest of the song. It was nice.
I just want to let everyone know, too, that while at the camp, the love that each person there, the campers, had for one another, some of them were like little mother hens to other ones that were crying, having a hard time. We had ones that just were depressed and anxiety, and they would just put their arms around them and say, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I love you. I love you.
In the next couple of weeks, we'll have some other classes. The Reason I Jump is a book. It is a book written by an autistic teenager who's describing his behavior. One of the things we're going to spend time next week talking about is what is the way that we talk about, that we think about some of our special needs folks who worship with us? Is there language we need to adapt so that we can be more caring toward them? Are there things that we need to know about them, that they want us to know about them, that allow us to have relationships that are fulfilling on both sides? This was a microcosm of the kingdom of God lived out, and I just want to encourage you to consider it in your future. Go in peace.